Welcome to the LinkedIn Trust Series at Advertising Week. I'm BJ Smith. I'm joined by Richard Edelman, CEO of Edelman.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
Good to be here.
I think, as we were talking before, nobody seems to have, that's been here has the experience and the history of research dealing with trust than you do. So can you give us a little background of what you've learned over the years?
Well, it started with the battle in Seattle in '99, and we were deeply interested in who are NGOs and why are they storming McDonald's and Starbucks. And we found out that NGOs were the most trusted institution in global governance. Over the long term, what we've observed is a slow descent of media and trust with a sharp decline this year. Government was very high in 2008, rode to the rescue, and then has declined since then. Business, which was wrecked in 2008, has actually risen in many countries to be the most trusted institution in the world.
Yeah, it's interesting you were talking about where the government trust was. I think back to, and I've been in web development for years, and search engine optimization was always been a big thing. And it used to be that if your website was mentioned on a government website, you were automatically given extra credit in search engine rankings because of that trust factor that was automatically given to government websites. What are the challenges that we're facing now?
Well, government and media are sort of tied for the bottom. In some countries, trust in business is 50 points higher than that of government. That's in the developing markets. In the developed markets, there's real cynicism about whether government can get anything done. So, in fact, business has to fill the void left by government by its actions and by its brand marketing.
So you said that business since 2008 has increased in their trust factor. What are some of the keys that have helped them to increase that, and how can we use those to continue?
Well, I think they've fixed their supply chain, be much more conscious of sustainability, been much better about talking transparently about what they're doing. But business is hardly perfect.
Right.
Trust in CEOs actually is at 2009 levels. So it went up and then has plummeted again, partly because of CEO pay and the sense that we don't even know who CEOs are. They're just a class of people.
And it seems like the only time that we hear about CEOs today is when something's happened to make it negative, that they've done something wrong or they've been ousted or something like that.
That's why CEOs should step into this void left by government. Howard Schultz at Starbucks, Tim Cook at Apple,
Elon
Mark
Musk,
Benioff at Salesforce, Elon Musk, Tesla. All these people have actually taken important stands on immigration, on education, on LGBT, and they've actually helped to change legislation in North Carolina, and they're the difference makers.
Yep. As a matter of fact, you were actually talking about the trust in government, and we've had so many people who were advisors to the White House that have just dropped off because they said, I don't believe in the things that are happening, so we're going to step to the side, these big CEOs of these corporations.
Well, I think it was really important because ultimately at some of these companies, the employees were completely disenchanted. And if the people aren't going to come to work and the customers aren't going to buy your product, you're sort of not in business.
Right.
So ultimately, I think you actually have to change your order of stakeholders from shareholders first to shareholders last. Put your employees and your customers first.
That's interesting. One of the things that's happened over the past several years is the big focus on the millennial market, and now everybody's talking Gen Z. But I think that trust and transparency was a big motivator to attracting the millennials to companies. Do you think that there are a lot of companies who may not have been completely honest and they would put something forth and say, we're being completely transparent and we're doing all these wonderful things just to attract that audience?
I think ultimately the new way that people are communicating is horizontal. It's peer-to-peer. And you can't get by with anything that isn't true. So if you're Unilever and you have the sustainable living plan, you have to actually meet the goals. And they've done it. But they still have work to do. So Unilever's actually now become the third most interesting place for people to work in the world after Facebook and Google. From nowhere, that's because they've really taken up this sustainable approach.
So we were looking at sustainability, standing up for rights or what you believe in. What are some of the other key things that will help build trust for companies?
I think it's two words: engagement and integrity. You've got to talk to people. You've actually got to create a platform so that customers can speak openly about their views on the product. Also, you've got to actually change policy. If something is wrong, a certain airline had a problem over the summer with a passenger, well, they changed how they did their work. They paid a lot more for a passenger to get off the plane now, and they'll never have police on the plane anymore. So that's a big, important thing. Then also, this notion of integrity, where the leader of the company actually has to conduct business as if all the employees and all the customers are his family. It's a different approach. It's not just treating people like commodities. It's actually treating them as if you cherish them.
Do you think we're going to see more companies stepping up and trying to be better stewards of the environment and rights?
I think a smart company recognizes that 2/3 of their customers are only going to buy their brands if they take positions on issues of the day. So whether it's LGBT or immigration, you've got to speak up if it matters to your business. If you're in, if you're like Trojan brand, and you better talk about reproductive rights.
Right.
This is in your alley.
Mentioning the millennials, and I know I brought that up, but I'm wondering, is that, taking that stand, going to be as big of a deal to the generation that's coming behind, the Generation Z?
I think it's just going to be taken for granted that companies are going to be in the traffic.
You think they're going to get lost in the shuffle?
No, I think they're actually, interestingly, going to push companies faster to be part of the real world, not to just pretend that they're in some castle sending brands out, taking money back in. That doesn't work anymore. You actually have to listen to your customer and then adapt your product and then ask them if it's okay, and then you'll make money. But it's got to be this virtuous circle that somehow is participative as opposed to dictated.
Wonderful. Richard Edelman, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
We'll be back with more from Advertising Week.